to another episode of the Unwanted Opinions podcast. Jay and I are back here recording about 5:15 Eastern time on a Wednesday. We've got a lot of NBA basketball to talk about. We've got some games actually happening right now, which is one of the things Jay and I are going to talk about what we love of the bubble so far, what we like, don't like. We're also going to talk about a lot of these teams. There's a lot of seeding involved where teams are jockeying for position in the East and the West. So we're just kind of going to get you with some quick hits. We're going to talk about a lot of teams, not a lot of time, and we're just going to give our thoughts on a lot of stuff. So we're really just going to get right into it. As I mentioned, the Nuggets and the Spurs are playing right now. The Spurs just went up 3 at half. The Sixers and the Wizards are playing, and the Sixers are only up 7 at halftime over the Wizards. Sixers got some problems. We'll talk about them in a minute. Utah just beat Memphis, who fell to 0-4 in the seeding game so far. I mean, they may be kissing the postseason goodbye because they have lost, like I mentioned, 4 games now, and a lot of them, 2 out of the 4 by heartbreaking fashion. But we'll get to all of that. Jay, how's it going today, man?
Good, dude. I was waiting for you to tell everybody how they can look us up and all that good shit.
How about you hit them with that this time? You take it for me.
Well, hell, you got it down pat, but you can look us up on Spotify. We got a channel on YouTube. You can get a hold of us on Instagram, Facebook. You can find the podcast anywhere you get the fucking podcast, the Apple Podcast app, Google Play?
Google Play.
I already mentioned Spotify. If you like listening to YouTube, you can find us that way. Basically, damn near anywhere. I think there's another one I'm missing too on where people get their podcasts.
We're on Overcast.
That's the one I was thinking of.
We're on the iHeartRadio app. Like Jesse said, anywhere
basically,
you get
no
your podcasts.
Reason not to hear us out.
All social media, just Unwanted
Twitter,
Opinions with
Savage
Nick and Jay.
on the Twitter.
Trying to be, man. Trying.
If you ever needed a question answered or wanted some advice on a game or something or a team, or if you just had a question you wanted to have asked on air and then us answer, hit us up on our email. It's unwantedopinionspodcast@gmail.com. You can hit us up, slide in them DMs on Facebook, slide in those DMs on Instagram. However, I think our Twitter DMs are open. You can slide in the Twitter DMs. There you go. However you want to do it.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, no way. And I mean, Jay and I said this a couple weeks ago or last week. I mean, sports are back now. I mean, as you see, basketball's back, baseball's back, the NFL is on track to get back, college football is on track to get back. So we'll be definitely a lot more active as it comes to social media, Twitter,
right
Facebook,
now we're just doing
Instagram.
Once a week because it's still kind of slow with the NBA. But before the whole COVID shit, we were doing twice a week. And if shit picks up, we might be on here 3 times a week going over all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah,
I make no promises, but it will be more than once a week. I can promise you that going forward.
Sure.
Once all the sports are back in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but that being said, I love the bubble. I fucking love this, man. I
love that there's games all day.
You get games all day. There's games starting at like 2:00. I mean, I heard somebody talking about it, somebody else that covers the NBA for ESPN. He goes, this must be what it's like living on the East Coast or the West Coast, because you get games at 2:00 in the afternoon when it's 5:00 here on the East Coast, and you're just basically watching games from 2:00 to 10 p.m. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I mean, a lot of these games, I mean, these teams are coming out playing hard. I mean, I thought there was going to be like some rest for these players, and you saw the Bucks. They rested Giannis and Middleton the other day when they lost to the Nets. But those first 2 games they played, that first night, the Lakers and the Clippers were going at it, balls to the wall. You saw LeBron going hard, Kawhi, PG, AD. I mean, everyone is playing their asses off right now. I love it. It's unbelievable. It's better basketball now. And I won't say than what we saw at the end of the season when it ended on March 11th, got postponed. But like what you're normally used to of end of March, early April, when people are actually resting for the playoffs, I think this is better now because they're playing for a lot.
To me, it is better than it was at the end of the season. I think it's fun. As a fan, it's fun to watch. The crowd not being there really isn't as big of a factor as I thought it'd be.
No.
It really doesn't bother me at all. I saw you see some games. It might even be all the games where they bring in the fans watching from their computers or
Yeah, I think that's
whatever,
actually
and
pretty cool. I
I
actually
think
like
it is
that.
too. So I think the NBA is nailing the whole COVID pandemic and having games all day long, every day, and they're fun. They've gotten, like you said, the teams to buy in. I don't know if that's an NBA thing or just an individual team thing where guys are just wanting to come out and play hard and earn their seating and go. Clearly, the Bucks and the Lakers don't have to play their starters if they don't want to, and yet Lakers are coming out every night outside of the Bucks putting Giannis down for a little while against the Nets or whatever. They've been playing hard to me. I know they've lost 2 in a row, but all around I haven't watched a game where I was like, this team doesn't want to be here or
There
this
was
team is
there
not
was
playing.
only one game that I thought that. It was when the Pelicans got run off the floor by the Clippers.
Well, I didn't watch that game, so there you go.
The Pelicans looked like complete shit that game. But really, that's the only one to me that, like you're saying, hasn't really been that competitive. And the Clippers just hit like 7 threes in the first quarter. And I mean, they hit like 15 by halftime. So, I mean, the Pelicans just couldn't do anything, really. They weren't defending anybody. But that's the only one, really. I wrote, you talked about the no fans. I wrote this down on my notes. No fans, no problem. Because as a viewer, you don't really notice the fans other than the rich people sitting courtside. And I mean, you're really not paying that much attention to them as a fan because you're just so focused on what's happening in the game. You'll see them every now and then, or at a big game, they'll show Jack Nicholson or like Snoop Dogg at a Lakers game or something like that, Billy Crystal at the Clippers. But you get my point. You barely realize them as a viewer. And
you want me to be honest?
it's been no problem.
I kind of like being able to hear the players talk
I
on the
love
court
that.
and hearing what they're saying and hearing what they're yelling, and when they're shooting a free throw, hearing what the guys are saying back and forth. It's just I kind of like that. I kind of don't mind
love
not having
it.
fans.
You hear the shit talk. You hear the
Yeah.
benches, like when somebody throws up a shot. And I mean, JaVale McGee for the Lakers, Dion Waiters had a nice spin move, and JaVale, you could hear him from the bench, and that it really benefits the guys with like the lively benches because they get their guys pumped up. Because I think it was the other day when the Grizzlies were playing. They're a young team, and Taylor Jenkins, their coach, was like, we got to find a way to bring our own energy because we don't have the fans. That's where it really helps veteran teams because they've got a lot of guys that have been there, done that before in the playoffs. They know what it takes, and they can get there. And they just been in the league 8-9 years, so it doesn't take them as long to get into the flow of things because they're used to this. And I've heard a lot of players say they don't really hear the fans anyways. It's obviously it's an empty arena, so it's a lot quieter for those guys. But they're just like, we really just block out the fans and don't really hear them. I know some of them feed off of like hecklers and whatnot, like Russell Westbrook and Patrick Beverley. I mean, these guys feed off of that energy. But still, I love that you can hear the players shit talk or whatever, even though they're wrong a lot of the time. They're always complaining about fouls, but
every time, and one.
Yeah, you hear that.
Every
you hear
time
that
they
so
drive
much.
to the basket.
So I love it. I really do, and I like the space that they have under the basket. That there's not 18 million cameras there to take pictures and whatever. I love that because I think it allows guys to go harder because they could dive for a ball without fearing that they're going to like break their leg or hit their head
on a camera,
something. Yeah, so I really like that. I think the NBA is really going to have to, whatever next season looks like, take away some things from what they've done in the bubble to adjust how they actually play in real life. I know that they'll obviously can't take away a lot of those courtside seats because that brings in so much revenue, but I think you can find that you can eliminate some of these cameras that are there to honestly just make it safer for these players.
I think the NBA is finding, the world as a whole, but the NBA specifically with this conversation is finding out that a lot of things are not necessary and won't be needed going forward if they choose not to. Or like you just said, maybe eliminate a few camera guys because now they know, hey, I can guarantee you from the general public, the NBA is getting positive feedback right now.
Absolutely.
So with all the positive feedback, they are probably more willing to and able to eliminate some things going forward that just make the viewing process better, that, they didn't have a way to practice it before or see kind of play little games and play with little things here and there. Now they were forced to do all these things. They see the results. They see what can and can't be done and what is necessary and what's not necessary. And going forward, I do think the NBA game is going to change a little bit for the better.
Yeah, agreed. Because like you mentioned, it's just kind of in society. Like we can do things so much more efficiently. Like there's ways to do things a lot more efficiently and effectively. And like you mentioned, this whole COVID has got people to realize that because like you mentioned, the positivity that's coming from the NBA, they're the only sporting league. I mean, the NHL is about to start back up, and they've had a lot of zero positive tests too. But I mean, you see what's happening in baseball, football. Football hasn't started yet, but it's possible that this happens in there. But the NBA had a plan. They dug in and they figured it out because they just showed again today.
The UFC out, Nick.
There were no more positive tests inside the bubble, which
is true.
They're
fantastic. Doing everything right.
Yeah. So I love it. What do you think about, one more before we get into some of these teams, what do you feel about the coaches in the polos and like the pullovers, like the more casual outfits?
I don't mind it whatsoever. First of all, I never look at the coach and what he's wearing and judge him one way or another. If a coach is out there in sweats and a T-shirt, I'm not going to look at him any different than a coach that's in a full-blown suit.
Well, they're required to wear suits as of right now, except for the bubble because they're allowed to wear polos. Or Brad Stevens is wearing like a three-quarter, like a quarter zip, and they're wearing like Nikes.
That's what I'm saying.
Out there.
A coach that would be wearing a full-blown suit in the regular season, and then him to be wearing whatever he wants to in the bubble, whatever. I'm not that doesn't shake me one way or another thinking he's a good, better or worse coach. I'm all for comfortability. So you want to wear some sweatpants and a T-shirt and be comfortable, but coach your ass off and do what you're supposed to do. I have no look at Bill Belichick in the NFL. The dude wears a sleeveless hoodie
that he cuts probably pregame.
Yeah, and some like sweatpants. Looks like the bummiest coach in the league, and is by far the best coach to ever step on a field. So the attire has no sway with me one way or another. I'm all for you wearing whatever you want to wear.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's more casual. It works. Like you said, the comfortability for these coaches. I mean, I know a lot of them complain about the dress shoes they have to wear. That's the one thing it's about is the dress shoes.
On the damn whole game, do you want to be in some comfortable ass shoes?
Yeah. So I think that's something that could be also going forward for the coaches to wear just a little bit more casual on the sideline and not be required to wear a suit.
I guess I didn't realize that NBA coaches were required to wear a suit.
You're not required to wear a tie anymore, but you have to wear a suit.
I guess I never put two and two together.
Most of them wear the ties, but there's a few. I think Brad Stevens is one that never wears a tie. He's always kind of got the open collar. There's a few of them that don't wear them, but yeah. So that's something that's been a topic of conversation with the coaches because I think a lot of them are very fond of dressing like this. And there was actually just a big article on ESPN about the coaches and the attire opposed to what they normally would have to wear. But I like it. I'm all for it.
I'm in favor of it.
Yeah. I like change in some certain aspects. So anytime you can better the NBA or the NFL, any one of them, I'm for it. So, all right. Let's do some rapid fire, quick hit stuff on a lot of these teams. So at the top, I just want to mention we're not going to talk about the Wizards, the Nets, the Magic, or the King. I'm sorry, you guys. The Wizards barely even brought a team to Orlando. Same with the Nets. The Magic are just a very unimportant team. I mean, Jonathan Isaac just tore his ACL. He was their best player. I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he had just come back from a knee sprain. And, I mean, he's a hell of a player. I mean, he's a really good two-way guy. Tore his ACL, so he's done. The Kings have just been a disappointment. I know those are Jay's Kings. He had high hopes for him this year, but they've just been sort of a mess. They had a few guys test positive for COVID. Then Rashawn Holmes gets in trouble because he goes and picks up chicken wings outside of quarantine rules. So then he has to re-quarantine for like 10 days. But yeah, so we are omitting
wrong on the Kings.
Those four teams, unfortunately. Sorry, but I will say this. I need to apologize to some of these fan bases because I didn't think they deserved to be these teams like the Suns. The Suns are 3-0 right now in the bubble and actually playing some pretty good basketball. I mean, they've got wins over the Clippers and the Mavs. Devin Booker has been on a tear. He's averaging over 30 for these 3 games. Just had the game winner, the first game winner of the bubble over Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he scored, like I said, he scored 37 against arguably the 2 greatest perimeter defenders in the league is what a lot of people garner them to. DeAndre Ayton has actually looked good. He's defending at a better level than he was before the season shut down. Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson are nice young players. And you got Ricky Rubio, who's always solid. I mean, he's definitely not what he was supposed to be when he came into the draft. But, I mean, they've got some solid players. So, I mean, they can make this push for the 8-9 seed in the West, because as long as you get to 9, you get a play-in and you get a chance to get in the playoffs. And so a lot of these teams they're looking pretty good, Jay.
Do you think they'll get in?
Probably not.
I mean, they've won 5 of their last 6. I know they're 3-0 since they've gotten the bubble. I have their remaining opponents pulled up right now. They got Pacers, Heat, Thunder, 76ers, and Dallas.
That's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Pretty tough. I think right now they are, let me see, out of 9 right now.
They're 2 games back from the Trailblazers.
2 games back from the Blazers. I mean, the Blazers have a really tough schedule coming down.
Yes, they do.
But
theirs is harder than Phoenix.
Yes, it is. But with Memphis losing today, like I mentioned, the Grizzlies have lost all 4 games so far that they've been in the bubble. They just lost Jaren Jackson to a torn meniscus, which is an absolutely huge loss. I mean, they're just a young team. They blow close games at the end. They foul a lot, and they turn the ball over. Those are all recipes for disaster. I honestly don't even think Memphis is going to even get in the play-in.
I don't either,
because they're playing so bad, and they still have a lot of tough games remaining on their schedule. So unfortunately, I'm going to say the Grizzlies are probably just done. I think they've just played too bad. They've lost their first 4 games. They just have no chance anymore.
So who do you think gets the 8-9 seed? I have my 2 teams.
I'm going to say it's the Blazers and the Spurs.
I actually think it's going to be the Blazers and the Pelicans.
I don't think it's going to be the Pelicans. I know they have a pretty easy remaining schedule.
Yeah, a very easy remaining schedule.
I think it's the easiest. Yeah. I think they play the Kings twice, the Wizards. I believe they still have no, they don't have the Grizzlies, so they just play them.
They have the Kings, Wizards, Spurs, Kings, Magic.
Yeah. So I know that their schedule was extremely easy, but I'm just concerned a little bit about the Pelicans because they're really bad defensively. I don't know where Zion is in his conditioning wise. I mean, I think he's only played a max of 20 minutes in some of the games.
I don't think it's his conditioning. I really think it's the upper management or even the coach holding him back. He wants to play.
I think he looks terrible on defense. I mean, it's basically like the dude is walking in concrete. It's like his feet are in wet cement when he plays defense. Guys just blow by him. He really needs to work on his defense. He really does.
His lateral quickness.
He's got a lot of things to improve on. I mean, he's kind of a project right now, if you will. He's obviously extremely talented, but he's got a lot of things to work on. I think he needs to finish around the rim a lot better with his right hand, defensively, obviously shooting, passing, just things a lot of young players do. He's got all the potential in the world, but I mean, the Spurs are on a roll right now. I mean, I know that they're playing Denver right now, but I mean, they just went up 9 midway through the third quarter. I mean, the Spurs, they actually look a little better without LaMarcus Aldridge because their offense is a lot more motion of what San Antonio likes to do, and LaMarcus Aldridge just kind of stands there and wants to shoot long mid-range jumpers, which is a very inefficient shot in today's game. So I don't know. I really think it's going to be the Spurs and the Blazers for the 8-9 seed, whoever gets in that last spot. I think it's going to be them.
I just think Portland makes it because there's only, 5 games left, and they still have a 2-game lead.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to get in. Grizzlies, I'm with you. They're out. They're just, like you said, they're a young team. I think as a Grizzlies fan, you should be happy and optimistic about your future. But especially after losing Jaren Jackson, you've lost every game in the bubble, I believe.
Yes,
so
they have.
Yeah, you're probably not going to win, and your schedule's not that easy going forward.
No.
So I would count the Grizzlies out, and then basically to me, it's probably not just between me. I mean, it's pretty obvious the Kings are out. So Suns, Pelicans, Spurs. I just think the Pelicans' schedule lines up the best for them to make that last spot.
I agree. And it is easy. It's just the Spurs never die. I mean, these guys,
This is true.
they're always there. I mean, and they honestly probably should have won that game against the Sixers if Shake Milton doesn't hit that three with like 6 seconds left to go in the game, because it was a defensive lap. I believe it was DeJounte Murray who just didn't switch out on Shake Milton after the out-of-bounds pass, and I'm sure Pop was absolutely hot at him. But, I mean, they could easily be 3-0. The Blazers have been unbelievable. I mean, they almost came back and beat the Celtics after being down by like 20 a few nights ago. They just beat.
I think Carmelo's finally realized he has a role, and if he's going to play winning basketball, he has to take that role on and not just believe he's the man on the team, whatever team he's on. He's a role player. He can score. I mean, you see that. Did he not hit the game winner?
It wasn't the game winner, but I mean, it was essentially what sealed it, because I think they were up 3, and then his shot put him up 6 with about 24 seconds left to go.
Whatever
Yeah, exactly. So I guess if you want to essentially say it was the game winner, kind of. But
no one ever questioned his ability to score the ball. It's just he always thought he was the man. He needed the ball, and it was his team. But I really believe he's bought into what the Blazers are doing and being that role guy and just being a good teammate and being exactly what the Blazers need. Blazers are a scary team. I would not want to play.
I actually
play
tweeted this last night because there was a lot of people talking about Melo, and Damian Lillard after the game said he's a Hall of Famer. He said, we're not surprised that he's doing this. We're surprised that other people think it's a surprise. But it was the fact that he wasn't willing to take a step back and accept a certain role. He still thought he was the star player who should get the ball at the elbow for 15 seconds and decide what he wanted to do every single time. And his game diminished. His defense was really bad. And he did get a bum rep. Basically, everything that happened in Houston last year, he was only there for like 13 games, but he got blamed for their whole season pretty much. Mm-hmm. And so I'm happy for Melo that he accepted his role in Portland, because he's like their 4th best player behind Dame, Nurkic, and CJ, because Nurkic being back, I mean, in these 3 games, he's looked unbelievable. I mean, he's averaging 22, 12, 4, and 3 blocks. I mean, you know what you're going to get from Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum on a nightly basis. Zach Collins still looks a little rusty, but I mean, him being back is huge because you don't have to play Mario fucking Hezonja anymore, who is absolutely awful. You don't have to count for him. And another guy for the Blazers who's been really good is Gary Trent Jr. This guy,
he went off the other night.
I think he hit like 7 threes against Boston when they almost came back and beat the Celtics. He's just been really good for them. So the Blazers kind of found their thing. They're still a little bad defensively, but I do think they're going to eventually get that 8th seed, because they're a team who, if they didn't have any of these injuries, they're probably right in the thick of things at 4, 5, 6, or 7 at least, and not fighting for 8, because they're better than Dallas. They're better than Utah, honestly. I know what their record states, but Utah just got some issues, and it's arguable that they would be better than OKC. So you could say they're the 5th best team in the West. It's just they had so many injuries at the beginning of the season that they just were decimated.
You get no argument from me on that one.
So I think it's essentially going to be they're at least going to get to that play-in. I think the Blazers are. They're at least going to get to 9, and then whoever it is at 8, which I think it's going to be the Spurs, either one of those 2 teams. The Blazers are just the best team out of this group. It's just flat out. I mean, the Suns have played really good basketball. The Spurs are playing really well. The Pelicans, it's debatable. They kind of blew that game against Utah in the opening night because they fucked up Zion's minutes. You and I were talking about this, so we saw each other on Saturday. If you have the minutes restriction on him, use some of his last minutes at the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game, when he's probably your 3rd best player at this point, but still a very vital component to what you do, and he's at least a guy that somebody will respect. So, yeah. I don't know, man. Yeah. So, like you mentioned, you think it's going to be the Pelicans and the Blazers. Do you think it's the Blazers that do eventually end up getting that 8 seed to play the Lakers?
For sure.
Okay.
But I don't think they have the team to beat the Lakers.
No, I don't either. I think Charles Barkley said that if the Blazers get in at 8, they'll beat the Lakers in round 1. Come on. I mean, Anthony Davis basically swept this team 3 years ago by himself with fucking Rondo. And, I mean, they just have nobody who can guard LeBron. I mean, Trevor Ariza's not there. Not that Trevor Ariza was really going to stop him, but I mean, he was the guy who was going to be best fit to guard LeBron, and they just don't have a matchup for Anthony Davis. I know Nurkic is good, but he's not a good defensive player. He's basically more all offense. So I do think the Blazers get in, but after that, I'm not sure exactly what the Lakers would get in 5. I mean, you probably get the Lakers 1 game. Jay's over here reorganizing.
Oh, you just keep talking, man. My fucking laptop's about to die. For some reason, the outlet's not working.
Well, we're having some technical difficulties.
Problems.
So I'll just rant. I'm going to move on from that race for the 8th. We'll go on to the East because there's a lot of shit happening in the Eastern Conference right now as well. I mean, Milwaukee, like we talked about, basically has the 1 seed locked up. I mean, I think they have they're up 5 right now on Toronto. I mean, they basically have to lose the rest of their games in Toronto and have to win all of them for Toronto to jump them. But Toronto almost essentially has the 2 seed locked up as well. But it's when you get to 3, 4, 5, and 6 between the Celtics, the Heat, the Pacers, and the Sixers. They're all separated by 4 games, or at least 4 games. The Sixers to jump up to 3 are behind the Celtics by 4. But then you're really getting the Sixers are really struggling. Man, I mean, they're playing awful right now. And
you liked the Sixers coming into the season.
I actually loved the Sixers.
I told you I was off of them. I didn't think they were shit.
Coming into the season because what they were, they're a classic. They look good on paper. It's just when they don't mesh together. And a lot of people try and blame the shooting. I think they actually have enough shooting. It's just they signed an old Al Horford who they gave him way too much money for, and the Celtics were happy not to give him all that money. Simmons and Embiid, I'm just not sure it works. I really don't think it does. It's just they haven't figured out how to play those 2 guys together, and it's been 3 years. I mean, they're when they're both healthy, arguably 2 top 15 players in the league. It's just half the time Joel Embiid doesn't care, or he's sulking out on the court because he's mad at something. I mean, you saw there's always drama. In the first 10 minutes of the game, he was yelling at Shake Milton when they played the Pacers. For a defensive juggernaut that I thought they were going to be and were claiming that they were, they just haven't been. They've given up 127 and 130 in back-to-back games, and they gave up 53 points to TJ Warren against the Pacers. They gave up 43 points in the 4th quarter to the Spurs, and they almost blew that game, but Shake Milton ended up being the hero. It's just, you just don't know what to make of these guys because they have all the talent in the world. They just don't put it together. There's something wrong there, and they just probably are going to lose in the first round of the playoffs, depending on who they get. Because
as of right now, they would draw the
Boston.
Celtics, and I would take Boston.
Yeah, Boston's a better team. I know that they don't have anybody to guard the bigs, and that's a huge problem for them. But the Sixers, it's just the problem with the Sixers. I mean, the Sixers just, I don't know. They're so frustrating because they have all the talent in the world, but there's nothing that they do that excites you. I mean, Ben Simmons fouled out the other night, and he only had 8 points when they won. And like I said, they gave up a 50 burger to TJ Warren, and it's just. They haven't figured out their rotations. They have no spacing on offense. They haven't figured out when Simmons and Embiid play together where to put these guys on the court. So I just don't know. The Sixers, they're just very. I could see them even making the finals. I really could because of the talent that they have. Or I could say they're probably going home early in the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Nope, I don't think they're going to do shit in the playoffs. I'm not sold on their coach. I don't think Simmons and Embiid work together. You could definitely make the argument now that they lost their best player last year in Jimmy Butler, who probably was the glue to the whole thing, who's now tearing it up over there in Miami. So
yeah,
I don't like anything about the 76ers, to be completely honest.
I mean, you hate to say this, but I mean, after they have one of the highest payrolls in the league. I mean, I don't think just shipping out Brett Brown is going to fix all their issues that they have this summer. I mean, you got to look to trade one of these 2 guys. You really do. I think
That's what I said last year.
I know, and it's going to be a huge talk once they lose in the first round because that is more likely to me them losing in the first round than them making the finals. But you're going to have to ship out one of those guys. And to me personally, I was on the Embiid train last year, but I'm more towards I think they get rid of Embiid, keep Simmons, and try and build a team around Ben Simmons like the Bucks did with Giannis.
That's what I said I would do from the jump, and I think that's what they will do.
Yeah.
That's what they should do.
You see how successful Milwaukee is with the spacing and the shooting that they have, because they also have a 7-footer in Brook Lopez, but he steps out and shoots because he's not as dominant as Embiid is.
And you can get a shit ton for Embiid right now.
I mean, you ship him off to Washington for Brad Beal and something else, or Portland for Dame Lillard, or not Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum, and I don't know, Zach Collins, or I mean, there's a lot that you could get for Joel Embiid. I'm not sure what it is, but
I'd be trying to get Brad Beal in their first-round pick this year.
Yeah, I mean, then let Joel Embiid go do his own thing in Washington.
Yeah, him and John Wall.
Yeah, get more shooting around Ben Simmons. So, I'm not sure. We can move off the Celtics because I'm done talking about them.
Not the Celtics, the Sixers.
Sixers. All right. Okay, we talked about the Bucks a little bit. Are there anything that concerns you? Because they're 1-2 right now in the bubble. Like I mentioned, we talked about they sat Middleton and Giannis in the second half against the Nets, but they almost lost to Boston with Jason Tatum shooting 2 for 18 and only had 5 points, and then they lost to Houston. Is there anything that concerns you about the Bucks going forward? They are still without Bledsoe and Pat Connaughton, so that's some of their rotation. Are there anything that concerns you, Jay?
I'm just not sold. Well, they're a good team. I full-heartedly believe they're a good team, but I have not picked them to go to the East or win the East since I didn't pick them last year. I'm not picking them this year. I think I came in saying the Celtics were going to do it again, but I've completely switched on that. I believe Toronto's going to win the East.
Toronto's fucking good.
As far as the Bucks are concerned, one, I'm tired of everybody telling me that Giannis doesn't play with anybody, no other stars. Chris Middleton's a star in this league.
Chris Middleton's probably going to make an All-NBA team, FYI.
The dude's a beast.
And Brook Lopez is probably going to make an all-defensive team.
One of the most underrated centers in the league. He can do it all. His IQ's through the roof. Like you just said, probably going to make one of the all-defensive teams. His putbacks, his offensive game under the rim is good. He's not one of those athletic, swing centers that run up and down the court faster than a lot of the other guys. He's big, he's slow, but what he does under the rim works, and he's good, and he's developed a three-point game. And DiVincenzo's coming into his own. I just don't like the fact that they say he doesn't play with anybody. But I'll give the Bucks. I think the Bucks make the Eastern Conference Finals, but end up losing to Toronto again. I think Toronto's fucking good, dude.
Toronto is really good. I want to just say a few things about the Bucks before we can talk about those Raptors next. But the Bucks, they give up the most threes in the NBA, and that's how their defense is designed. They protect the paint at all costs. You just really have to hit your threes. In Houston, when Houston beat them, that's exactly how you have to beat the Bucks. I mean, the Rockets first of all, they made 21 threes, which they shot 61. So they missed 40 of their 63s, but they ended up winning this game because that's what
their motto, dude.
That's what you got to do. You got to shoot a lot. You have to just make a lot of your threes because the Bucks are going to give them up. They will. And I know when Bledsoe comes back, and like I said, Connaughton, that helps their rotation so they don't have to play George Hill and DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo's the younger guy, but not all these minutes because you get an established veteran in there, and Bledsoe, who also, by the way, has had his postseason struggles, so we'll see if he continues that or not. But I don't like that they don't say that either. I'm not ready to say I'm going to pick the Bucks to not make the finals because that's who I've gone with all year from the East. But I do think there's a little bit of crack in the armor, especially when you play a team 7 times. I mean, I said this a few months ago before the season shut down that there was just a lot of people just saying Bucks, no, absolutely the Bucks are going to the finals, and it's not even going to be close in the Eastern Conference. That I thought that was false because I think there's going to be multiple teams that challenge them. I think Miami can challenge them. I'm not saying Miami will beat them, but I think Miami would give them a hell of a series because they've got a lot of guys that can match up with Giannis, and they hit a lot of threes. Miami does, and they play great team defense. So the Bucks, They should be 0-3 right now in the bubble because they should have lost to Boston had Jason Tatum not had probably the worst shooting day of his career. So I think there's just and they don't seem to be playing with as much urgency as a lot of the other teams. I'm not sure what's going on when they get fully back to healthy. Who knows what's going to happen with them? But right now, the Bucks, I think there's a little bit of crack in the armor, and I don't think there's the juggernaut that everybody says that they are.
I don't either. I think they're a very good regular season team, and when they get in the postseason, I think it's even without Kawhi. I think what happened last year is going to happen this year. Teams saw the blueprint that the Raptors did to them last year, where they basically fortify a damn wall in the middle to where Giannis can't drive, and he's going to have to make other players beat them. And yes, I get that he's been in the gym and he's shot some threes and he can make a few more than he did last year, but I'm just not buying it until I see it with my own eyes and get proven wrong. I believe teams are going to build that wall, and there's a lot of good defensive teams in the East.
Yeah.
Defense is great in the East, in my opinion, all the way from the top to the cutoff at the playoffs. There's not a bad defensive team, in my opinion. Maybe the Sixers now, but
they have the ability to be a good defensive team. It's just
they lack some offense in the East, but. Yeah, I see a lot of the defense. Miami is a great call on your part that could really, really cause the Bucks a lot of problems come the playoff time.
Yeah, because, you're playing every other night. You're not getting in between where sometimes you have 2 days off in between a game. They don't have that luxury this year to have 2 nights off in between. And the Bucks, contrary to what everybody believes, they're not that young of a team. I think everybody just believes that they have a lot of young guys. They really don't. And that lines up. I'm not saying that they're going to get tired and whatever, but it's a possibility because they're just not going to just ramble through the Eastern Conference like a lot of people are saying that they will. So it's just, man, and Toronto, we'll just move on from Milwaukee. Actually, I wanted to say this before we go on to that. You talked about how Giannis was in the gym and blah, blah, blah. Did you see the one video I think surfaced on Twitter and everywhere about Giannis making a lot of threes in a row in an open gym? You know how unimpressive an NBA player, to me, making shots with nobody in his face is? It's like a fucking accountant putting numbers into Excel. They do this for a living, and it's so easy to them. I don't know. I hate when people get so obsessed with an NBA player making open jumpers in a gym. I think it's the stupidest thing. It just is so dumb. I hate it. I'm never impressed.
Chest, man.
I'm never impressed by an NBA player making an open jumper in practice. It makes no sense.
That is their job. That's what they do
exactly.
all day, every day.
You get paid millions of dollars to do this. You should be able to make an open shot when nobody's in your face. You're just getting the ball passed to you. You should. So,
you don't think would you be as impressed if a pitcher standing on the mound and 40 straight throws, he throws a strike?
No.
Exactly.
Or like a quarterback throwing a fade and completing it every time in practice. So
it's what they're supposed to do.
Exactly. And there's no pressure at all there's no defense, whatever.
I didn't know you had such deep feelings about this.
It's just dumb. People get so obsessed with it on Twitter and they're like, "Oh my God, look at Giannis. He's been in the gym over the hiatus. Watch out for his threes." Every team, even if Giannis hits 3 threes in a row to start off a game, every team is going to go under on his screen and make him shoot that. Stan Van Gundy
a smart coach,
was talking about this the other day. He was talking about when he coached the Magic. He was like, a better shooter was LeBron at his time when he was coach of the Magic. He said, we went under every single screen because you have to take away what he's best at. And what LeBron was best at was driving to the rim. What Giannis is best at is driving to the rim. He was like, we're going to try and take that away first. And if he makes the shot, he makes the shot. But we'll give that to him 100% of the time.
Yeah, we'll live and die by that because we believe the better shot for him is driving to the rim where he's damn near unstoppable.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Raptors real quick because I think I underestimated the Raptors. My God,
I did.
Fucking swarming on defense. They are unbelievable. And, by the way, Nick Nurse got snubbed on the Coach of the Year because Budenholzer and Billy Donovan shared it. If anybody should have shared it, it should have been Billy Donovan and Nick Nurse. But that's neither here nor there. The Raptors are really, really good, man. They are really good. They're the great team defense. They've got so many guys on offense who can create their own shot. They're so smart. They play so well together. I'm blown away by them. I didn't think they would do much in the playoffs. When people said they picked them to go to the finals, I'm like, I could see it, but I don't really think so. Man, are
I
they
thought
good?
they were just a regular season team. I think my outlook of the Bucks and the Raptors have swapped over the restart. I'm all in on the Raptors. I think they could give
They're damn good.
Western Conference teams problems in the finals.
Yeah.
I think they have everything you need. They have shooting. They have guys that can create their own shot. They're amazing defensively. They're unselfish. They make all the right plays. They have, like I said, shooters. They have size down low. They have guys that can go one-on-one like Lowry and Siakam.
And Van Vliet, man. Don't sleep on Fred.
I'm not hating on Van Vliet. He's another one.
I think he had a career high 36 a couple days ago against Miami.
Got 6 guys averaging double figures, 2 averaging 20. I don't know what this team lacks.
They really don't have much of a weakness because they're so smart defensively. You saw when they played the Lakers how they were always doubling Anthony Davis every time he caught the ball. But normally when you double somebody, you think, oh, automatically a guy's open. But they rotate so quickly. They just rotate. All their switches are so good. They're very on point about everything. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't turn the ball over much. They play defense without fouling. They're just really just a solid team. I like I said, I'm not ready to jump off the Bucks yet, but the Raptors are going to give the Bucks a run for their money, and the Celtics, because the Celtics and the Raptors are almost prime position to end up in that 2-3 matchup in the second round. And having no home court for Boston, I mean, that does not help the Celtics at all. But those Raptors, man, you can't sleep on them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also hurts the Bucks that the Bucks were
no home court
best,
for them.
Yeah, they were the best home court team in the NBA. Only lost 4 games all year, lost 10 on the road, and now you don't really get a home court. I think
it's none.
To me, I'm taking Toronto to come out of the East.
I really wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, I'm not ready to jump ship, but Toronto, man, they're just damn good. They just find ways to beat you. They really do. So, yeah. All right, the Celtics. Your Celtics, Jay. You picked them to go to the finals last year. I believe at the beginning of the year you picked them to go to the finals again.
Yeah, Nick. Yeah.
They're 1-2 so far in the bubble. We talked about that performance that Jason Tatum had where he went 2 for 18 against Milwaukee. They barely squeaked out a win against Portland after being up by as many as 20. Yesterday they lost to Miami without Jimmy Butler, which is troublesome. And Kemba Walker's knee still seems to be an issue even after having 4 months off. I've heard a lot of people say it may be tendonitis, so it's something that he may just have to honestly play with for the rest of his life. But that's a little troublesome, and they struggle with the bigs still. They struggle down low with bigs. I mean, they struggle with Nurkic.
I think that's their biggest problem. No pun intended. I just think I underestimated how big of a deal it was that they lacked the size down low to be able to play with other teams' centers. And Jason Tatum's kind of up and down to me. You just mentioned earlier how he had such a terrible shooting night against, was it the Bucks?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's up and down to me. Kemba doesn't look the same like you just said. I could see them being upset by Philadelphia. I know I said I'd take Philadelphia earlier, but I could see them being upset by Philadelphia.
If they get a matchup with Embiid, that's probably that's like the one guy they probably don't want to see at all, especially in the first round. I mean, even if they they do get Philadelphia in the first round and they do have to deal with a Joel Embiid. I mean, if they end up winning in 7 games, that's not something they signed up for. They didn't want to face Philly in the first round and have to go to 7 in the first round. And again, I think it's going to be troublesome for the Celtics not having home court. I think that the Boston crowd is always very hostile, and they have a very good home court advantage. Boston does. But again, I mean, that also hurts Philly too, because Philly was 30-2 at home and 10-25 on the fucking road. They were awful. But that's what we're primed to see in the first round. And if you would have told me that at the beginning of the season, that the Sixers and the Celtics were going to face each other in the first round of the playoffs, I would have said, you're fucking nuts. Exactly. I mean, I don't even know what scenario that would have been in. Rather than the more that would have been more believable was 4-5 instead of 3-6. So I don't know. I just think the Celtics have not looked that great. They haven't. They're another team that could easily be 0-3, but they could also be 2-1 because you could make the argument that they should have beaten Milwaukee if Jason Tatum didn't have the worst shooting performance ever. I mean, he was really bad in that game. So then he cut his hair, and then he had a good game against Portland.
Do you think Boston has a chance to make the conference finals?
Yes, but I think they have a shot to beat the Raptors because the Raptors are a team that don't have a big guy that's going to dominate the game. Because Gasol is not that. Gasol was really never that with Memphis, but he's never going to be the guy that just is absolutely going to pound the glass. And neither is Serge Ibaka, and they've got guys on the perimeter to match up with Toronto's perimeter guys. Like they've got Tatum and Brown and Marcus Smart, who are really three really good perimeter defenders. They are. And Gordon Hayward's no slouch either. I mean, he's not as good as those other three guys, but he's pretty damn good to match up with Siakam, Van Fleet, and Lowry. So that is I think it's very even matchup. And Boston's a really good defensive team too. Don't get it wrong. They're a good defensive team, but that's going to be a really, really good second round matchup. And like I said, I think that's where we're primed to go. So that's going to be an awesome second round of the playoffs. But I do think they have a chance to beat them. I do. I just like I said, I'm not counting any of those three teams out, and I'm not going to count out Miami
on teams than I thought we were.
Yeah, I told you, man. We were hitting a lot of shit today.
Go Miami.
Miami. I mean, Miami is another team. They just beat Boston without Jimmy Butler. They just switched Bam Adebayo to the starting center and took out Myers Leonard. They're just so much more versatile on defense. I think they can give Milwaukee a hell of a run in that second round. I mean, really, they're only a game behind Boston for the 3 seed. I mean, it's possible that they jump Boston to go to 3 and don't see Miami, or if they get to the conference finals, Milwaukee until they get there. So that's another option for Miami.
Yeah, I could see them winning 4 or 5 to finish the regular season out.
Yeah, I mean, they're just a really good team. They make a lot of threes. Goran Dragic did just get hurt, so we'll have to see his, because that really hurts their bench if he's not able to play. He kind of runs their whole second unit. But, I mean, I think Miami's a really, really good team, and they're very well coached. Yeah. The last team in the East that I want to talk, I just want to mention T.J. Warren is just out of his fucking mind right now scoring the basketball. I mean, he's averaging 39.7 points on 65% shooting and 60% from 3. Now, I don't think the Pacers have any shot to really do anything in the playoffs. There's no Domantas Sabonis. Oladipo's missed a game. Brogdon's missed a game. They don't have Jeremy Lamb. They're just going to be really thin. I think they'll be competitive, whoever they play in the first round, but with all the injuries and the stuff that's happened to them over the past couple of weeks, I just don't think they're going to have enough to beat anybody. But I just wanted to give T.J. Warren some love because he dropped the first 50 piece in the bubble.
He's earned it.
Yeah. All right.
50, 30, and 30 the last 3 games.
I mean, he's been damn good. I think he started off last game 6 of 6 from the field in the first quarter. It was unreal. Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty much came out of nowhere. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, he has. Well, he's always been a solid player. I mean, I think he averaged 20.
Yeah, but not like this.
No, I think he averaged 20 for the Pacers this year. I believe he was their leading scorer, believe it or not, this year. And they had Sabonis, who was an all-star, Brogdon, and Oladipo. Yeah. All right. I don't really want to get too much into these LA teams because I think it's Clippers, Lakers. I think they're on a crash course to meet in the Western Conference Finals. I think they're easily the 2 best teams in the West. Lakers locked up the 1 seed. Everyone was making a huge deal out of them losing to the Raptors, but I mean, they went 10 for 40 from 3 and had a lot of wide open looks. So if they were to meet in a series, if that was the finals, I think the Lakers would figure a lot of stuff out from how the Raptors played them last time. Clippers, I think it's a little bit bigger deal than a lot of people were just brushing it off that they lost to the Suns, because Nick Wright on FS1 was basically the only one that said if they lose, it's no big deal, but if they win, they're like the greatest team of all time. It's like they can't lose either way, because if they lose, they didn't try. If they win, they're the best team in the league. So, but like I said, I do think they're the two best teams in the West. How do you feel about Houston, Jay? Because they've looked pretty good so far.
I've been waiting to bring this up because before the season, you told me when they made that trade, it's never going to work. They can't work together. It's just not going to work. It's going to be a dumpster fire. And I said, I think I was on the smaller end of the spectrum when I said that I believe they will work. I think they're good friends. I think they'll find a way to figure it out. It seems to me that they're actually trying defensively, and I think Westbrook brought that intensity to the team, even though he's lost a step, being, 30, 31? Is he 33 at this point?
He might be 32.
James Harden never attempted to play defense, and it looks like he's trying to play to me now. I believe Houston is going to be a problem.
He's 31.
And I know they live and die by that three-point shot, but all you got to do is outwin that 3-point shot 4 out of the 7 games in the series. You don't have to you don't have to fucking win every single game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't have to win 5 straight.
And who's to say if they have a bad shooting night from 3 collectively that James Harden will go off for 45.
Yeah, and now Russell Westbrook, I don't know how it works, but he works better with James Harden than Chris Paul did.
He does. The only thing, Eric Gordon being out for about 2 weeks hurts, because you saw last night when Harden was in foul trouble. He had 5 fouls, and Westbrook, needed some sort of a break. So they had both of them out at the same time. They really didn't have anybody to run their offense. And had they not been playing Portland, who's not a very good defensive team, they probably would have went scoreless for those 3 to 4 minutes that they didn't have him on the court. So that's a little concerning. But Jay, I'll tell you, man, I don't think they'll beat either of the LA teams. I think they have a better shot to beat the Clippers than the Lakers, because of the size advantage that the Lakers will have against them with Anthony Davis, because they just have no one who can even really stay with AD. Not that a lot of people do, but the Bucks are going to make it damn tough on anyone they play. And I'll guarantee you neither LA team wants to see them in the second round because, there's just that chance, like you said, where they get hot for 4 straight games, and that's all they need, or 4 out of 6 games. That's all. And they can hit all these shots. It's just I still do worry about them dealing with somebody of somewhat size who has skill, like a skilled big, like an AD, like a Jokic, like a Porzingis, that type of player who can shoot over them. They're great passers. And then they just have other shooters around, because, like you mentioned, they do play a little defense. They mostly they want to outscore you. But I did understand.
They just beat the Mavericks, and the Mavericks scored 149.
It was 153 to 149. Yeah.
Yeah. They score 149 points and lose.
So it's just they're going to be all offense, man, and it's just they worked a lot better than I thought they would, and I actually really like watching them play more than I ever have. I really do. I think they're just exciting to watch. And they're down like 30, and then they can come back and be up 10 in 7 minutes.
Yep. They can just go off at any point in time.
Yeah,
I don't know why I thought they would work, but I called my shot, and it's worked.
There were a lot of people more on the side of they weren't going to work.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it made sense, because Russell Westbrook's a ball-centric point guard that can't shoot, and he's going to a team where they already have a ball-centric guard who wants to shoot, demands the ball, and a 3-point shooting team is their philosophy.
They had like 2 of the highest usage rates in NBA history, these 2 guys, and they're working together. I really like it, because it's almost they take turns on who's going, my turn, your turn type deal. And like I said, they stagger a lot of the minutes between the 2 of them. And again, I just think that small ball, I think it freaks teams out when they have a big. I think they just force feed their big. And then, sometimes it works, but Houston's really good at bringing the double team, and PJ Tucker's like damn near unmovable. He couldn't move. Brook Lopez could not move PJ Tucker the other night when they played Milwaukee. And
you start force feeding your big, and you're hitting half of your 2-point shots, while Houston's out here fucking hitting 30% of their threes on
Yeah.
every attempt. That three ball is worth more points. It's just that simple.
And the
And they're
post up
just
is
outscoring people.
And the post up isn't really much people's game anymore. And like I said, I think it
No.
throws people off because they just think, oh, we have such a size advantage. Let's post them up. And then that gets your offense out of sync. I mean, other than like Denver, who's got Jokic, but he plays from the elbow a lot. AD really is more of a face up guy. I like I said, I think those are the two guys that can really cause them the most problem. But when you start trying to just feed them, and then all your other guys are just sitting there doing nothing, it just throws your whole team out of whack.
Yeah.
So
Houston's a problem.
like I said, I don't think either of those LA teams want to see him in the second round, and that's why it's so important this seeding because I mean Denver right now, and they're basically tied for third and fourth, but I mean Denver's playing San Antonio right now, and Houston's been on a roll. So I mean you may see Clippers, Lakers, or Rockets, Lakers in the second round, or Clippers and Rockets. So who knows?
I don't have much to say about Denver. I'm not really sold on them either. I think if it's Denver and Memphis or Denver and Dallas in the first round, I guess right now it'd be Denver and Oklahoma City.
Yeah, which would be a pretty good matchup. But the Nuggets are still without Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, and Will Barton, so they're not at full strength. So they're still kind of running on their. I mean, they're starting like 3 7-footers and Plumlee and Jokic and Bol and Michael Porter Jr. is getting a lot of minutes, which kind of is actually helping his development right now because, I mean, you saw him in that win against OKC, scored 37, but that first game against Miami, Mike Malone had to take him out a few times because he kept screwing up all the defensive shit. He was just playing terrible on those screens and not switching and just giving up a bunch of shots. But Denver, I don't have much to say about them right now either because we need to see him back at full strength before I make my full analysis on how they're going to be come playoff time.
Yep, I feel that. Denver's one of those teams that until they finally do something in the postseason, I'm not banking on them to do shit.
Yeah, and it's just Jamal Murray didn't really take that next step like he should have this year of what he's getting paid, what his contract says. He just has the potential, but he just didn't get there this year, so that was a little disappointing. But Skinny Jokic, man, I like Skinny Jokic.
Yeah,
he's good. He's so skilled, man.
I love that you call him Skinny Jokic.
I mean, he lost 40 pounds.
Out here looking like Porzingis.
Thunder, I don't have much to say about the Thunder either.
Me either.
The thing that sucks for them is Dennis Schroeder just left. But I mean, he's leaving for the birth of his son, which obviously any player is going to leave. Gordon Hayward for the Celtics said he's going to leave when his wife gives birth again too. So that it's just don't know how long he's going to be gone. But that's a huge component for OKC because I mean I think they're another team that I don't think a lot of people want to see in the first round because of how tough they are and how just solid, how many solid basketball players they have. I mean when they destroyed Utah, they had 6 guys who scored over 10 points. So I mean and Chris Paul, and they just have they've got a lot of good vets that are going to make it tough. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's turned into an all-star level player. He's a stud, man.
Yeah, I think they're a fun team to talk about and a fun story. And I like the players. I like the coach. I don't see them doing much come playoff time.
No, I don't either. Like I said, I think they'll just make it tough on somebody. I really do. But I mean, to me, they're no championship contender or anything. It's just they're a great story because they were doubted by a lot of people, including both of us, Jay, this year.
Oh, for sure.
I just thought they would be a competitive team. I didn't think they'd be anywhere close to, possibly getting the 4 seed. I mean, they're not out of contention.
And that's why Billy Donovan was sharing that Coach of the Year.
Yeah, agreed. All right, we kind of said our piece on the Jazz. I wanted to ask you one thing about the Jazz. I mean, they clearly miss Bogdanovich because they just don't have enough shooting. Their bench is fucking terrible. And Donovan Mitchell
tell us how you really feel.
Is being asked to do too much, and he's just not there yet as a playmaker. Him and Rudy just seem to be they've got a lot of drama. Him and Rudy seem to be off even on the court. I know they've said that they've squashed everything off the court and whatever.
You can say that, but I don't believe it.
I don't believe it either because I think you see their body language during the game, and they just don't look like they like each other at all.
Nope, and that spells problems. That's your 2 best players.
Yeah, so and Utah was another team we were really high on this year. I thought they were going to be the 3rd best team in the West. And
I thought that Conley trade was huge.
I did, and the signing of Bogdanovich, which it was good, but he's hurt now, which sucks for him. So I think they're getting swept no matter who they play in the first round. I really do.
I don't want to say swept. I'll give them a game.
You're very generous.
Yeah.
They might face James Harden and the Rockets again in the first round for the third straight year and lose in 5 like they did for the past 2 years. And last team in the playoffs for the Mavs will just, I mean, they're pretty much locked in at 7 right now, I think. I mean, they're 2 games back of the 6 right now. They have they play absolutely zero defense. It's embarrassing how little defense they play. I mean, they're Houston, but not as talented offensively as Houston because they just want to outscore you, but they're not there yet. Luka's just going to tear somebody up in the first round, but they're probably going to lose in 5, maybe 6, but they're just going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, right now they're going to get the Clippers.
Yeah.
I actually think that'd be a fun series to watch.
It would be a fun series. Like I said, Luka's going to make it tough on anybody, but I mean, I don't think anybody's scared of Dallas right now because they're a little past where they probably should have been this year anyways.
Yeah.
So,
if the Clippers play the Mavericks, how many games do you take it
5.
to?
I'll give Luka 1 game.
Okay, I can actually see that.
If it's Denver, I mean, depending on what Denver looks like, I mean, I may take the Mavs in that one. I just don't know about Denver, man. Like I said, I can't give them my full analysis because they don't have everybody, but it's just awesome, and I love the basketball's back, dude. It's just so much fun to watch. I watch it every single night, basically all day. It's just awesome.
Yep, I'll be hopping off of here and go watch that Lakers game.
Hell yeah. Gets the Thunder.
Lakers Thunder.
Yep. All right. We basically covered everything, Jay. I mean, we basically talked about every single team in the league. We already told you where to find us on all social medias, platforms to listen to us on. So make sure when you do that, subscribe, review. So do all of that. But Jay, if you don't have anything else to add, man, we can get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
All right.
Until next time.
Until next time.